Something a little different today, guys. This was actually brought into the shop by a customer. It's kind of a cool one. Microtechs are always cool, but take a look at the markings there. Blade Show 2018. I do not know if this is a standard clip or not, to tell you the truth. Blade has seen a little bit of use. Nice tumble finish though. What this customer would like done is Cerakoting on the blade and on the clip. He has chosen what some people call Tiffany blue, but the actual Cerakote color is robin's egg blue. So, not my choice, not my first choice on this. He wanted something that he thought would match this. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. We've got Cerakote colors that I think would be a better match to this. But the customer is always right. So I'm about to disassemble this knife, and we are going to, I'm going to double check if he wants the switch done as well. But we are going to take it apart, do a little cleaning on the inside. We're going to get this clip and this knife ready for coating, and this blade ready for coating. And you're going to be with me through the steps of this this little project. Now, of course, Microtech being Microtech, there are not just normal screws to disassemble this thing. They're very proprietary. I had to go and buy a little screwdriver just to get these things out. Now, the Microtech one, of course, is Microtech priced. I found this one on Amazon. It is third party, we'll say. And it was much cheaper than buying the actual Microtech branded screwdriver for this thing. I've never disassembled a Microtech before. You know, I shouldn't say there's not a whole lot of difference in most OTFs. Of course there are differences, but I know pretty much what I'm going to find inside there. It will be my first time seeing the inner workings of a Microtech, and I'm very curious to compare them to what I've seen before in other OTFs. In terms of both quality and mechanics, should be fun. In my opinion, manufacturers that do this kind of stuff are just douchebags. They're just dicks. There's no reason to do this besides to sell people one more item. Seriously. No reason for this. To have to use a special screw that you have to buy a special bit for. And I own like a 170 piece, kit with like all sorts of security bits and whatever. If that's what they're worried about, there are plenty of security bits out there. This is just to make more money. Okay. See what we've got. So this looks very similar to many. It looks almost identical to other OTFs I've seen. Now, that doesn't mean Microtech copied it from anybody. I would be fairly confident saying other people copied it from Microtech, in fact. But I've seen these almost exact pieces in other OTFs. So if you're not familiar, there's basically one spring, and the one spring does everything for shooting it out and bringing it back in. These are the pieces that kind of lock and then unlock as the blade goes back and forth and retains it in either the open or shut position. See, so those are actually your locks, and then there are different parts of this. I'm not sure exactly what you call this. The shuttle. This is what I'm going to call it right now, and that engages with the spring and the various parts, and then it has pieces that you can see will interact with the locking bars to lock and unlock with the pressure of the button moving various pieces. So it doesn't do it on its own. It can't unlock on its own, is what I'm saying. So, but very standard kind of internals. Probably, like I said, because a lot of companies copied Microtech. They're very well established. So what we need to do now is remove this. That's what locks the blade in right there, just this one little piece, and see how that holds it in that channel right there. Extends a little bit out. So we've got the blade, and now we've got the pocket clip, which is what we will be coating for this gentleman. I need to get some very precise measurements of the markings so that we can laser them back on at exactly the right size and everything when we're all done. And I will put all of this fun stuff in a case so that we don't lose anything. Spring, by the way, goes in there. That's why the switch popped right out. And I'm going to get to work cleaning some pieces and degreasing them so that we can prepare for the coating. Not the greatest lighting in here right now, but what we have in here is what we call a flashed blade. So I've done the Cerakote. This is what we call duck eggs blue. Used to be actually called Tiffany blue, but the official name was changed. People still do refer to this color as Tiffany blue, but that's not what it's called. You can see why it's called Tiffany blue, because it matches that box that you get at Tiffany's, but it is duck egg blue. And that's what the customer wanted. So this is flashed. So the Cerakote is applied. It is put in the oven at a lower temperature for a brief 15 minutes, just to basically solidify and get it to stick, to dry it, to harden it a little bit. It's not fully cured. Okay, so it's just enough that it can be manipulated a little bit. And I want it like this because once Cerakote is fully cured, it is the full hardness ceramic shell basically around the piece. In order to make sure that we're able to expose the bevel, right? So he still has a good cutting edge. And this did need a little bit of refining on the edge, a little bit of sharpening too. If I had fully cured the Cerakote, there would be quite a good deal of work to get to that point. So we flash it so that we have a dry, adhered coating, but not the full hardness yet. And then we can work on it and just get to the point to where we have exposed that bare metal on the edge. Then we can fully cure the Cerakote, and we still have the exposed metal though, so we can continue working. So this is just a hastily assembled. This is not fully done. I'm going to show you guys the reassembly once, because this blade has to come back out and we have to put it back in the oven. But for the sharpening, so this is a DC3. You guys have seen the DC4. I've done a full review on this. So this is a diamond and then a ceramic, double-sided. And then to do the real refining, this is a great finishing stone. Okay, so this is an artificial ruby, synthetic ruby, and then a natural agate. So we've got a 3,000 grit and then a 10,000 grit. So once we do some really nice work with the diamond, the fine diamond, and then the ceramic, we'll move on to the ruby and the agate to put a very, very nice edge on there. And then we'll do a little strop to make sure this is in fine cutting shape when it goes back to the customer. And again, if we, once the Cerakote's on, it is like working through ceramic. That's literally what it is. So doing it like this makes it a lot easier and actually lets us put a better edge on it than having to work through the Cerakote coating. So at this point though, we still can test the function, make sure everything works. Make sure that the coating, Cerakote when done by a professional, should not be more than 1 mil thick, 1/1000th of an inch. It doesn't need to be any thicker than that. And so we want to make sure that we have it at that very precise thickness, that it does not interfere with the function of the knife at all. No moving parts are messed up. And now we can disassemble again, fully cure it, refine the sharpening, and then I'll be back to show you the full assembly of the knife, how it goes back together. All right, this might be a little bit of a noisy segment here, as there's lots going on in the shop right now, but so let's put this thing back together. This blade is now fully cured, so we're not worried about it. We're still going to do some lasering on it, put the logos and everything back on, but we're ready. So, misconception a lot of people have about automatic knives is that there is a spring that is ever fully engaged at any point. This spring will be stretched as it functions, but at any given point, whether the blade is extended or retracted, it is always at rest. The spring is there to make the mechanism function, but whether the blade is out or in, it always sits in a resting position. So when you're storing the knife, you don't have to worry about whether you're storing the spring taut or relaxed. It's not a factor. This is the actual piece that moves back and forth, and again actuates these little levers. Now, there are little tiny springs in there, by the way. If you take this part and you remove these and you lose these little springs, God help you. They're tiny and they fly, and hopefully that's not a thing you're worried about. On the ends of the spring are these arms, and they interact with this piece. I call it the shuttle. I don't know what its actual name is, the bar or whatever, the trigger bar, but this is what moves back and forth, like we said when we initially took it apart. And there are these arms on either side that interact with this piece. This interacts actually with the blade and the trigger, and the little locking parts, that's what keeps it going. So everything needs to be assembled. It's relatively simple if you know how to do it, but it needs to be done precisely in order for it to work. So the first thing we do is we put the blade back in. Now we're going to give it just a little bit of oil. Do not want to over oil this, just to give it a little lubrication there. You don't want oil seeping around and dripping out. Just enough to cut down on a little bit of friction is all. And you'll see now that lock is engaging with the knife. This pin goes back in, and that is what engages the bar with the blade. We'll lay the bar on there. It doesn't matter where the knife is right now, where the blade is, sorry. Leave it, just leave it in there where it goes. Now this is the tricky part, and this is what can take a little bit of time. So we're going to connect the spring on one end. We're going to connect the spring on the other end. And if I didn't have such old, terrible eyes, it'd be easier. So you'll see that there are posts on either side. The longer one connects towards the rear, and oops. The shorter one connects towards the top. Now, the spring needs tension on it. And this is a little bit of a trickiness to get it in the right tension, because everything wants to jump around. And you don't want to lose anything. See? Because like I said, you could do it a million times. It still might be a little difficult. Because you don't want to be overly rough with everything. You want to have everything sit nice and even as you're putting it all together. And yeah, it still could give you a little bit of a hard time, and not to mention the angle I'm doing it at, so I can get it all on camera, doesn't help. So this engages all the way at the top of the trigger bar or the shuttle or whatever we're calling it. And this is going to engage all the way at the rear. There we go. Once you get it in, it pretty much behaves and it just sits. Now, the actual switch, this spring keeps it from just sitting on there constantly. Pressing against the metal. You need to make sure that the switch is engaging the bar right there. And then once you get that, all you got to do is make sure that you get this sitting flush, and if you've aligned everything, it's not too difficult. I know the blade is in a weird half position, don't worry, because these things are made, sometimes the blade gets off track. There's a safety feature in, I was going to say all OTFs, but good quality OTFs, that sometimes they get half like that, so that if they're firing out and they meet resistance, they get off track, they stop. Mainly so like if it's in your pocket and it goes off, it doesn't shoot through your leg. And all you got to do is just pull it back into the track and it should work. So with just a little persuasion and prompting, you know, the blade needs to get itself in the track, but once it's in there, it's like clockwork. Now the customer actually just called and said he did not care if we put the logo back on, so that's cool. One less thing to do. Now I got to get that pocket clip reattached, and this will actually be ready to, he wants it shipped. He's not going to come back in and pick it up. Pocket clip is back on. The real test, let's get ye old cutting money. And that blade is back in good cutting condition. So this one's ready to go out the door. Very nice. Interesting piece. Love the history on it. Hopefully the customer will be very happy.